touring show has stopped here for a while. Here by the ocean, Island Bay. In the year of the rooster, the year of desire. Restless days here. Nights filled with dreams. A dream once of a traveling theatre touring the world. Time passes. Sometimes now, the set is a yard where broken cars are abandoned to the salt spray.
Alexandra Town Hall. 23 people come to the performance. Accommodation $20, food $19, petrol $10, scrambled egg and cabbage for tea. Wednesday, 6th of October, 1976. Roxborough Town Hall. One show only. We leave right away after the show and drive straight through to Dunedin. Arrive 3 a.m.
But there's always a suitcase filled with mementos, play scripts, film strips, photographs, all that's left from all my performances.
Keep going! 8th of October, 1976! Fortune Theatre!
It was 17 years ago. I've got all the memories here in the suitcase.
You keep going on and on and on! Why?
To keep the romance alive.
You cannot put a price on performance. Perhaps it has no value at all. It's just there for a few crazy minutes. Passers-by stop sometimes and ask me, I remember you on that show. What have you been doing all this time? The person I was for that performance is dead, and I have no memory of her. I remember the others, the comrades, the ones still living outside the law. I want to bring them back for a return season, to get their versions of the story. I heard there might be a room to let in Avon Street, in an old convent.
Yeah.
I arranged to meet the caretaker.
Yeah. Do you want to have a look? I don't know why you want to come here anyway. I don't know why you want to come into the place anyway, because you won't like it. It's a real dump. The loos don't work. There's nothing going for it.
Is there any water?
No, I wouldn't drink the water. The water's coming from the roof tanks and there's holes in the roof. The opossums are in whizzing in the bloody place. The bloody seagulls are dead all over the place. The place is alive with animals all over the place, mice pattering all over the place, seagulls. But if you're interested, well, you can stay here if you want.
Well, how long can I stay?
Well, it's coming down. Who knows? Tomorrow, a month, a year. But if you're interested. Okay? It's up to you.
always, but exciting from the point of view of being on the road, being answerable to nobody, being free and easy. I like to think I bring to my involvement with what I'm writing the same kind of intensity. This thing was going on down Victoria Street, which was sort of, it was just so interesting to be involved with and to see what they came up with. And I felt about those performances as I feel about without exception, all the Red Mole shows that I've seen or been involved with. There's a peculiar intensity of image and emotion, which I certainly, I mean, it's a sort of, to me, it's a quintessential theatrical experience. It was fantastic, really, because Red Mole was a very loose structure, and they would use anybody who wanted to be involved. There was always an incredible rigour about the way they worked. But at the same time, there was a looseness and a generosity and a willingness to include disparate elements. And an extreme dedication. That's the other thing that stands out, I think.
Yeah, it is. That'd be alright with the lid up. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that bloke in the white suit. That's Arthur, and it used to be in your shows.
Hey, that's right. Did you come to them?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, that's Arthur.
I don't want to actually hear about those days in a way because I'm doing what I do now, but they always talk about Neville. Peter McCleavey, every time I see Peter McCleavey, Neville, he doesn't know my other name. And if something happened in the news, bribery or a sex scandal or something, you knew if you went to the cabaret that weekend you would be seeing it. And we found a story about an old guy who had been gay in Christchurch, and these young kids found him in Hagley Park in the toilets and they killed him. And we got that newspaper article and we made a play about it, and the band played Love Me Do and another ballady sort of a thing, and we reenacted that murder in slow motion, and it caused a fuss, but it was a beautiful piece of theatre. That was a major thing, and it was great that it was in the balcony, you know, and Carmen's people really liked that piece. This is Bute Hughes reviewing Red Mole at the Ace of Clubs. Good satire needs a sharp cutting edge. Red Mole used cudgels to try and batter its subjects into grotesqueness. Much of the show was offensive without being funny. Indeed, a large slice of the first half, with religion as its victim, was downright blasphemous. What happened in the second half I cannot tell you, because I went home at interval unable to stomach any more. That got us huge audiences. When people read that, they came along. Once a year you find yourself sitting down talking about Red Mole, like now. The only one I haven't seen, and I want to see her and put my arms around her and hug her, is Deborah Hunt. She would get 10 laughs before she opened her mouth. I mean, she would just do things, like when she was the pig with those little ears and nothing else. She was just an ultra comedienne, you know, and I'd love to see her again sometime. Now, Deborah Hunt, what's her name now?
Well, ask for Deborah Hunt.
Okay.
Then ask for Deborah Guerrero, I guess.
This number is no longer obtainable or has changed. Please.
As soon as I get to the last 4 digits, I made it up and cut off.
Yeah.
Always trying to find the formula for the perfect hit show that would make us all rich and would go on forever. We would never have to paste our own posters again. After all the dead-end streets and the padlocked gates that said no trespassing, there it is, the gigantic spectacle. So big, we use a racetrack outside of town, and the queues are so immense. People abandon their cars and cross the grass on foot. The ringmaster shouts through a megaphone. I lead the parade in a satin suit as pink as a wound and a forget-me-not hat. Behind me walks a muscular man with a ladder. I climb the ladder and wave from the top. Over the grandstand, the moon comes up like a sponge pulled out of a heart during urgent surgery. 100 women in pink climb 100 ladders.
Who's that? Is that? It's not
No, it's more on
It's
stage.
not Gypsy, is it?
No.
Now,
Alan doesn't look as
how
though
can we remember all those lines?
Alan doesn't look as though he's got any lunch. Shouldn't he? He should have had his lunch. Look at the look on his face. Oh my word. Oh, it was this makeup that Debbie used to wear was so severe. What's it, the bride one?
Oh, that's I Knew the Bride when she used to rock and roll.
Yes. That's right. When they did that at the club at the balcony.
Oh, well, that's right.
They'd never had anything when the balcony started.
Well, this was before the cabaret started, wasn't it?
Yes,
So
it was.
This is how
It was.
really everybody got involved with Carmen and the balcony.
They came and asked for a job to work. Yeah.
For a job.
That's right, at the
And
weekends.
this was the number that they did.
And they'd never done this at the balcony before. Never. And they did it as a cabaret number, and with the girls were stripping. And the girls were stripping and doing an act. They had to strip and then do an act. And then Sally and them came in, of course, and then they decided to reveal. Yes, and they were so worried about showing their boobs, and they first went on.
When you guys first started to have the pack, I choose to
Yes. If they came in and paid and they couldn't see, you should have passed them back again the next night because they just couldn't see. You just couldn't. They were standing all the way down the stairs and outside waiting to come in. All the way down.
I think my first experience in the
Yes.
dressing room at the back of Carmen's was the most incredible thing of my life, actually. I thought that was just, with all those strippers back there. Oh, it was fantastic. It was like a carnival.
But that
every
cabaret
night.
number you did when you came out was
No, we thought you were the carnival.
Oh, God.
No, we did.
And I remember that wonderful phrase when people used to say, she's going to turn.
Oh,
Do you remember? She's going to turn.
Yes.
People,
Yeah. Watch it, she'll turn. Well, because Gypsy's now Gary. Gypsy's, yes, Gypsy's in boys' clothes now, short back and sides. And Dion's a boy again too. Dion's got his own hairdressing salon in Karori.
So yes, they were great times. So it's fun.
They were.
Exciting.
And you didn't think of it finishing. I don't want to remember the end.
When you bump into this lot, they're just the same old people. A few more wrinkles, but same old people. I go like to the supermarket like this every day, especially just to collect my mail. Nobody loves me.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, Sally. Oh, what's this you're doing?
That's that film with Deborah.
Wow. Looks like New York.
Yeah, it is. It's the Williamsburg Bridge.
Reminds me of the day I arrived in New York. February the 1st, yeah. It's freezing cold. Just come from an Auckland summer, had no underwear on. Stepped out of Kennedy Airport to about a 90-mile-an-hour gale. Cut me in half. Anyway, Johnny took me back to the hotel up on 49th Street. Subway up to 8th Avenue and 42nd Street. Didn't really know what the place was about then, and Johnny was a little bit paranoid at the time. He'd been maced at Christmas time, and So we walked down 42nd Street, my first trip. It was like being in a movie. Everything was just happening all around you. And meanwhile, he was being paranoid about my bag. I'll sneak up behind you and slit it with a knife and you'll lose everything. And I'm just sort of bug-eyed looking at everything. Oh, I slept with Deborah, purely platonic situation. Deborah took up 95% of the bed, 100% of the room. Clothes from the ceiling to the floor, hanging out windows. My God, there was barely room for my bean sprouts, I tell you. You know, looking back on it 10 years later, you know, the reason I came back to New Zealand was to get out of the New York scene, which, you know, had become my life. I mean, it was no longer a movie, it was no longer exciting. I mean, it was actually happening to me, getting mugged, getting robbed, the dirt, the filth, the homeless. I mean, it was too much. So I thought I'll go back to paradise. I no longer think really of a mission to change the world. I think more of a mission to change myself through theatre and the people around me. I guess my vision is narrowed somewhat to the community that I'm in. I mean, I don't see that any artistic action is really going to cause a major change throughout anywhere in the world. It's really the action within any community that does have effect. Which brings me to the point of where I'm going, Sally. I need a costume. Well, I need a jacket, a tie, a shirt, anything. I have to go to court. I got caught, a bean court. That it seems to be performing at the moment is presenting certain political ideas to people and discussing them in some way or other, exposing certain political situations. And by political, I mean just human relationships.
I remember those first nights in New York. Coming home after dancing in the bars all night long.
I can remember their names. The Wild West, the Adam and Eve, the Club Exotica.
Didn't I sell this to you a long time ago? In fact, I sold this to you a long, long time ago. In fact, 18 years ago.
Yeah, at the market.
My goodness. Oh, how amazing. This must be one of the first costumes Red Mole ever had.
The first.
The first? Oh, how amazing. How absolutely wonderful. You're looking great.
Oh, you too.
Oh, lovely to see you.
Thank you.
You're not going to sell this. I'm not buying it off you again.
So the trip across was epic. Epic. We drove across in a 69 Dodge van with ball tires down to the canvas by the time we hit Illinois. I remember Tony looking at the tires and going, Jesus, mate, I don't know about this. We had to meet the Red Mole characters at the Theatre for the New City, which is on 2nd Avenue and 10th Street. So we navigated our way there, and we were a bit early. I think we were supposed to just basically wait there until somebody showed up, you know. So we sat parked there for about 3 hours, and I just remember the spiciness of the neighborhood. I'll never forget that. You know, people just like the whole world walking by. In the late spring, we went to we went on this great exodus to London, and we all, at the time I remember, went in staggered groups because there'd been an airline disaster, and all DC-10s, I believe, were grounded. And so Alan and Neil Hannon and myself got the last DC-10 out of New York City before they were all grounded. So we got to London first, checked into a little boarding house in Chelsea. The guys who ran the place were sort of earthy kind of guys. There were a couple of Liverpudlians. There was this guy with dreadlocks from Liverpool who just like sat around and smoked pot all day. And I remember him sitting one day at the kitchen table with a group of us around. I think you and Alan were there. And somebody reading the paper, and there was something about the Queen in the paper, and he said, "Yeah, the only thing that me and the Queen have got in common is we both got a dirty asshole." We got this engagement playing at this at this Commonwealth Festival, and if I remember rightly, we were the only New Zealanders there. It was another example of feeling kind of set apart and unique in Redmore. That for me, that's something I always felt every time I worked with Redmore. I feel completely apart from any other music or entertainment that's going on right now. This is totally different. I remember rehearsing there one day. One of the organisers came down and said, "There's a reception up at the town hall." So we thought, yeah, okay, we wrapped up our rehearsal for the time being and strolled on around to the town hall. We were ravenous, we run out of cigarettes. We were, things were not easy. So anyway, we get to the town hall. It's quite formal, we're dressed like what came out of the wash, And we roll up there and we're formally announced, "What's your name?" He says, "Richard Kennedy." He opens the door and goes, "Mr. Richard Kennedy," and his voice echoes throughout the hall. Like, what? We all get announced this way. "Miss Sally Rodwell," "Mr. Alan Brunton." It was the greatest. So we get in there and it's like, "Where's the sandwiches?"
I remember Alan and I lashing the trunks onto the top of the old Buick, and these people hanging around and saying, "Where have you been?" And we'd been to England by that stage and come back, and "How did you get to England?" one of them asked, and Alan said, "Oh, we drove across," and there was this whole picture of driving the Buick across the Atlantic and back, which was what it felt like. I mean, that car was our home. And I love those American cars. That big Buick was an incredible thing. It was like a whole hotel suite on wheels. And the beautiful American roads, great, huge, wide interstates, and the parkways. I loved driving the parkways where you weren't allowed a trailer or anything, and it was often through the woods. And beautiful country. And you really got a sense of what it was like for people to arrive in New York and then just go into that huge, vast land and try and find their place. And I remember lashing all the gear on the Buick and then setting off at about 2:30 a.m. to go across into East Texas, and you sort of come up out of West Texas into the Panhandle, the Badlands. And it was just this incredible landscape, and it was just on dawn, and everyone else in the troupe was crashed out at the back of the Buick, and the sun's coming up, and there was a little joint sitting in the ashtray, and I just had a few puffs, and it was just drive. No one else on the road, and you're going, and you really know that you're doing it, as a troupe, you're going for it, and you could go wherever you wanted to. And you lean on one another a lot. I mean, the incredible trust and bond that you develop with the other people, that you depend on them to such an extent. And it felt good. It felt great. Driving in that car through the dawn and the panhandles, everyone else is quietly sleeping. I think in the troupe too there was a very classic arrangement of types, the people that we were. And they were the roles that we played on stage, and they were the roles that we played as a group travelling. And people would be very fascinated to see the way we interacted on the stage and then get to know us as a group and sense that whole dynamic, that we were playing out aspects of our lives, aspects of our relationships that were right there on stage, which led to incredibly fraught times on stage, because if you had an altercation with someone in the dressing room, then more than likely you might catch a whop. And I'll never forget in Santa Fe being whacked by Alan with the supermarket trolley, the fucking supermarket trolley. It's like I had to jump in the supermarket trolley, and if I didn't jump at the right time, then I'd collect it in the hip. I remember one night Richard Kennedy getting quite pissed off with me because I'd come out to do 8 o'clock walk and I picked up my guitar and whoops, there's a string broken. So I walked across and picked up Richard's guitar and put it on and played the song. And he wasn't happy, and I don't blame him. I mean, you don't do that kind of thing, but the show had to go on and I wanted to sing the song with a guitar, you know? Dead fingers walking early afternoon, blood on the staircase, whispers giving chase. Dead fingers, whoa, 2 blue flowers on the door, dead man on the 2nd floor. Check out of a hotel on Tuesday afternoon, put a gun behind the mirror in the bathroom. Hammers on the moon late last night. Now there's a pile of bones on a budget flight. One that says, dead fingers walk. All those songs that happen for each show there'd be more songs to write about where we were, about what the show was. Great music, wonderful music.
We came back to New Zealand, which was quite a cultural adjustment, having been in America and been performing there for all that time.
And I can remember this feeling of kind of total lack of reality, like floating, partly from exhaustion, but also from culture shock, really. Street. I found that, from my experience, as soon as I stopped trying to be successful in terms of the world, that I actually became successful. And now I have very realistic aspirations. If I've paid my rent and I'm in good health and relatively calm and happy, then that's fine. That's all I ask of life. And really, I feel very lucky to have been able to have carried on what we really started doing in Rodwell. We meant it then, and we mean it now. As a professional musician, I find that every now and again I do gigs. It could be teaching a friend's child the piano, or it could be playing one night at a party or whatever. But I do some things for nothing, just to remind myself that the reason that I did music in the first place was because I loved it, not because I was being paid for it.
Over stones and broken bricks, carrying parcels of felt slippers wrapped in brown paper. We were trying to go home, trying so hard, to the green, growing more green. And all you can see is the greenness of everything. Endless journeys across vast cities with wide, tree-lined streets, closer and closer to departure time. The reservation clerk is saying, "This flight is closed. You're too late to go anywhere." But what's worse, on the airplane, going to the end of the earth and wanting desperately to get off, to get out, to walk in space above the clouds.
Going up.
Oh, haven't I seen you somewhere before? You're very familiar.
I saw you with that girl. With that girl. I saw you with that girl. Deborah. 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 Perhaps with that girl.
Deborah Hunt. What was her middle name? Did she have a middle name? It surprised me that she went bush, actually. To the desert at first, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And New Mexico and all that, and then Old Mexico.
Yeah.
Now Nicaragua.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Wow. Going more troupe as she goes.
And she's toying with the idea of coming back.
Everybody does in the end. I don't think you need to fill the gap for too long, probably. Everybody comes back. That's why I didn't go. Only I expect people to bring a few more bits back than they do.
Bits of what?
Bits of over there.
That was the show where Deborah was Matahari.
Oh, in chains.
She gets taken to the firing squad.
Oh, yeah.
And Deb did it in a fur coat.
Oh, right. With nothing on under
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
This is nice. This is a red mud poster.
Yeah.
We made that when we were living in Georgina Street.
Yeah, that was Georgina Street. That was what it looked like.
That's when we did that song, Hey Rangi Toto.
Sitting in there, however. People, they come and go, but Rangi Toto stay. Mr. Asia.
Whose idea for this poster?
I think that was Alan's too, yeah. Walking down Boogie Street, which I'd never seen, he had to describe roughly. Packed with people, he said. Oh, yeah.
But the best performance we ever did of it was in a Chinese restaurant.
Where?
In Dunedin.
Yeah?
And
they liked it?
They liked it.
In a Chinese restaurant?
Yeah. Do you still go to the theatre?
Theatre?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I don't go out much at all. It's so time-consuming. Very old and brown now. It's a picture of you here. It's not so faded because it's been underneath something. With Deb looking very Chutzpah. Pa.
Yeah. I've just thought of
About
something.
this photo?
Yeah.
What?
Deborah's middle name.
Uh-huh.
Louise.
Louise?
Yeah.
I'd never have suspected that one.
What's your middle name?
Desmond. I gave that away straight away.
Good.
Found in the back room of a rebuilt home on Love Canal. Mama was a cashier and Daddy worked for Ivan Watkins Dow. And when I was 12 years old, the fish came out of the cold. All the policemen on the beat, Calvin Boulevard and Frontier Street, whisper in their radios, watch which way the hard rain goes. It's Agent Orange doing the night shift at the Freak Exchange.
Let's read up, take the trumpet. Home on. A different clue in every chromosome. I'll be around for 99 years. I'll be around for 99 years.
Just hanging around, polluting the earth, while pretty women give monstrous birth. Thanks to the Challenge Corporation, we're on in for some universal mutation. Birds are born, falling over without wings.
One night.
I threw your typewriter.
What?
I threw your typewriter down the lift well.
Smith Corona. Apocalypse.
We were earning top dollar in the clubs, and you were doing what?
Performing. There's nobody out there. Another call from Anonymous.
This is my wife.
I am responsible here.
We have a camera.
I stand alone. You think this is going to be the last show that I'm ever writing? This is going to be the summation of all this enterprise and effort. And each show becomes the summing up of your life to that point. In Luang Prabang, we made a promise to form a collective traveling theatre troupe. And a full moon came up over an opium den behind a Shell service station. And the history of Red Mall's been a collection of bright moments ever since that time. And at times it's been in the middle of a crowd, and at times it's been all alone. And the responsibilities, the things you had to do to keep a group of people happy as you pass through eras on highways. I think at the beginning the idea was to maintain the romance of people being together and trying to avoid it becoming a crowd and swallowing you up and absorbing your personality. And over the years, people put in 2-3 years of working with Red Mole, and then they just vanish, they just blow away, and then someone comes down the road a couple of days later and says, you know, I'm looking for something to do. Something to help expand, and you turn to them and say, let's all expand together, let's grow, it's an expanding universe. And somewhere on the edge of the universe, there's an infinite curve, and it's illuminated, and that's what you're riding on, and it's red hot, and it's a wave, and it's a wave to nowhere. To have a vision, you must leave home. There's a passage by Borges where he says, in the beginning, God said, let there be light. But what if he had said some other word? Because each show, being the last show, leaves you fresh to start from the beginning, all over again with the next show. And each show becomes an epic. There's this clawing up hills, up mountains towards the complete moonrise, and it might be a blood-red moon, and it might be coming up in the middle of a glacier of stars. And out there at the beginning is the origin. You come back to your origin, and you remember where you came from. And in those memories, there's the perfection that you were always looking for.
I was too angry to rehearse. I was so isolated. I was nearly mad. I gave you $15, and a girl on the street took it out of your pocket.
You were unreachable then. It was a time of division. We were like cells in a body tearing themselves apart, like planets in reverse.
Staring out at Manhattan, we had visions.
Yeah, I remember making that. We had a few little hairy moments in that one, Sal. Australian cameraman, Tim Burns, you wouldn't forget him in a hurry. I mean, just an Australian in New York, you know, they stick out like a sore thumb. Petey Boy was the Italian boy from Brooklyn. He lived with his aunt. She used to cook up these huge Italian dishes of meatballs and spaghetti and things, and he would bring big plastic containers of it round, you know. He was in the film The Black Police, wasn't he? Yeah. Here we were, filming on the Williamsburg Bridge, 3 days, after a triple hit, a triple murder on the Upper West Side, about 3 blocks from where we live actually. There was this hitman abducted this woman, and these CBS employees came out, and he shot 3 of them, you know, gangster style, in the head before taking off with her and then murdering her. They found her body later that day, and we were filming on the Williamsburg Bridge 3 days after that with no kind of police permission. I always remember I was had to chase Billy up the bridge, you know, and he was just like a heavy smoker, and I didn't realise how unfit he was because I kept catching up to him. I used to say, "Can you go a bit faster, mate?" And people saw us doing all these sort of gangster cops and robbers type things, and these people called the New York Police Department, and the first thing I knew something was wrong, a helicopter came in, you know. Christ, all of a sudden I saw people coming over the sides of the bridge, and I looked down and there was the police launchers and stuff down there, and luckily I was about 200 yards down, so I thought, well, I should just stay down here.
Oh, you chicken!
Because the place was swarming, and I looked around and there was no cars coming across. It was Friday afternoon, and later we found out that we'd blocked the traffic in Lower Manhattan for about 5 miles down the road. There was a gridlock because of us filming on the bridge, and later I think Sally and the rest of the people that got arrested that day had to go to court.
It was one of those days at a roadside station outside of Tucumcari. The sky was ashtray red, the sun was steady and still at 104 degrees. There was no water in the air, only those with nowhere to go would ever think about stopping there. Then a big bare belly pulled in from off the interstate. His face was a dying fire falling through the grate. His car was a lost cause looking for a mate. The crows left their trees when his feet hit the ground. They say he was the sheriff in a town called Wagon Mound. 6 desolate days in Memphis, trying to convince his wife to let him see his kids again. Folded in him, black and pocket knife. She was living in a trailer with a motel operator, and outside Amarillo, a stone had sliced his radiator. The sun folded in the sky like some forgotten flag on a battlefield of bones buried in the sand. Dakota came out with a broken bolt in his hand.
And then we got a letter from you guys in New York saying, we've got this space. First 3 weeks of April, why don't you come over and do the music?
Were you and Tony together at that time?
Well, it was developing. It was developing. In San Francisco, you know. Didn't you know about this, didn't you? Oh, God. We were sort of thrown together. And then as time went on, we found we had sort of more and more in common. It was funny.
Death goes out every day trying to make his quota. Sometimes he drives a truck from Spearfish, South Dakota.
Must have been 1981. Nancy Shatskin had found a theatre on Broadway that seemed perfect. She had some money to fix it up. It was underground. It was around the corner from the Hotel Consulate, between, what, 47th and 48th? And I remember particularly the sign that Deborah made on the outside.
And then you wrote some music for another Redmore show.
Dreaming's End. You guys would say, right, we're coming over tonight, and we'd do it, sort of as a group. You had ideas about what you wanted, and And I remember the MIT chant very, very well. Sitting around the table with the microphone, and Alan and Richard with the Steep Boys going, like sort of Tibetan monks. And we got the giggles. It's very funny. You had to be there, folks. But I just remember great evenings going on for hours and hours. And I remember nights everybody played Stones. It was going to be like a country wedding, like a sort of a wild, sort of peasantish wedding.
That was the wedding of Persephone and Dis.
Great images to work with. Yes, I'm still writing music. Well, that's the thing that I love doing the best, and that's been a great sort of focus for me because, you know, 3 kids. Life can get very tedious and very domestic, and you get very caught up with your own little world. And I've always fought against that. I've always tried to sort of not live a mundane life. I never wanted to live a mundane life. I've always tried not to.
So, Jean, will you write the music for this film?
Sally, it's like a proposal of marriage. Yes! Yes, I will.
I came back to the hotel with $1,000.
$1,000 all over the bed. $1,000 for doing what?
I'm packing my bags for a long black train, walking down to the station. What if the train doesn't stop here? But there are hundreds marching down the hills. The train does stop. We all pull each other on board. My suitcase falls apart. I have to bend over to tie my boots. The train leaves. It takes hours to collect all my things in paper bags. As the day ends, a celebrity stands beneath my tree. We stroll towards a long highway. A car is waiting. The celebrity gets in and closes the door and never looks back at me.
Looking back on that show, the last time we performed it was in the Legislative Chamber at Parliament on the 50th anniversary of Savage's death. And it was quite an extraordinary occasion and very emotional, going in with all of our props, with all of the costumes, the banners, the red flags flying, the little corrugated cardboard State House, the masks, Karl Marx, the coats with capital and labour, and the costume that I wore before, which was the solo mother with all of the children that Sally made, and all of these amazing objects that were part of the show, and which, even when they were not actually being used, they had a life of their own. I remember Roger Douglas coming past, and his comment was, "What's this, a garage sale?"
Comrades, we do not expect shopkeepers to understand these things.
If you're doing a show like that, that's the space you've got. That's backstage. That's it. It wasn't Parliament any longer. It was backstage, and I loved that. The kind of work that we are both doing now stems from my involvement with Red Mole. It's about being an actor, creator. It's about creating your own work and your own words.
tension of being actors, of always being someone else, made us like high-tension power cables falling all over each other.
I first met the Red Moles in Santa Fe, New Mexico, sometime in 1985 when they came down to do a production called Dreaming's End. They presented it in a kind of beautiful old adobe cathedral in downtown Santa Fe. And Alan and Sally started coming down and sort of camping out at the center, working on this kind of theater production. I'd drive in during the day and see their big old car sitting there with all this sort of stuff spewed out, and they were rehearsing on their theater project. And then the sort of winds of fortune in my life sent me into the southern, sort of the Antipodes, and was in Australia teaching at the University of Adelaide for a period, and got to see a third production of Red Moles, which was the Book of Life.
Ready for you. Hope you're ready for us.
At last.
Let's go.
The Book of Life.
Due to overwhelming need and demand.
The Book of Life.
In language that is frank and daring.
No.
Veiled hints.
No.
Prudish beating about the bush.
The Book of Life.
We go into the sacred places of your inner life. Right now. This is the place.
At last. The Book of Life.
We've sort of decided that's the millennium's coming up, so it's time to sort of latch on to the millennium theme and take it where it can go.
Sally! Sally!
We made theatre. That was our life. Everyone's still doing it. That's what we know how to do. Most of all, I want to say thank you to all those people who made my life a life of theatre.
Sally! Sally!
I'm Sally. Thank you.
Sally! 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 It's coming down. The bulldozers are coming in. Get your stuff out. It's coming down.
Sometimes the airplane takes off in a perfect climb into oblivion. Other times it falls into the sea. Every performance is critical. If you stop performing, everything would stop. You would be beside a road, waiting for a bus that never comes. After school, on a dark afternoon.
Wackos, they'll never make a dime.
They brought sincerity and something different that we could stand and watch.
And Red Mole were like, it It's like going to a carnival.
It was like very picaresque to me, you know, scene after scene.
Sort of an intercontinental collaboration.
You would never know what was coming next. You would never know what was coming next. It's a wonderful lifestyle.
Everybody's involved with doing things, and that was your bit, so you just got down and did it.
I just stay up all night and do it.
You want to go back and do it all again.
It comes down to how well you're being paid.
I'm looking to get back on the road again.
They were actually quite a good-looking young bunch of people. I've got to say that. They were all right, and they had a good time.
And some of them I look at and I think, God, you must have only been about 12 at the time.